Good morning, everyone. Uh, good morning to you all. Whoever is listening or watching this, wherever you are, I am Dr. Joshua Isiko. I am a feed expert. I want to talk to you about the maximum and minimum inclusion rates in the feed formulation. This is something that many of you are just learning today, probably, or you are just hearing about it today. But don't worry, you are going to have more explanation of what this means and its importance in the feed formulation. This recording is part of a training or part of the course Animal Feed Formulation. Personally, I'm a business person. I deal with feed formulation. I'm the brand promoter of the FeedCalculator in Uganda. So if you've used the FeedCalculator app on phone, that is me. So today I welcome you to this talk, and probably you understand why certain things are done the way they are done. It will also help you know that certain ingredients don't have to go a maximum amount, as some of you may have been doing. When you have 3 ingredients, you think you can make a feed, which is not true. So we are going to look at the maximum and the minimum inclusion rates of feed ingredients. A definition: what is the maximum inclusion rate? It's the maximum percentage of a given ingredient or additive in your formula for a given feed type. For instance, I am making a formula for layer birds that are laying eggs. Every ingredient I'll pick may be maize, soybean cake, cotton seed cake, sunflower, lime, salt, whichever premix. It has a maximum beyond which it's not allowed. For instance, premix, we don't allow you to use more than 1% inclusion, meaning in every 100 kilograms, you don't have to go beyond 1 kilogram. Beyond that, it's poison. So we have maximum of an additive, premix is an additive, or an ingredient. For instance, soya, the maximum inclusion of soya products, all soya products, soybean cake, soybean meal, soybean full fat, a combination of all. If you used one or all the 3, they should not go beyond 35% inclusion rate. Beyond that, the feed is not tested, and layer birds will leave it for you there. Is it bad feed? The nutrition composition is good. When you take it to the lab, it will have exactly the kind of protein you want. But when you bring that feed to the farm, put it in the feeder, the animal will tell you this feed is not good, it's not palatable. So during formulation, you may include exact or lower than that. It depends on how the price is playing in there. So it is either that or lower, not more. That's the meaning of maximum inclusion. And the reverse is the minimum inclusion. It is the minimum percentage of a given ingredient or additive in a formula for a given feed type. For instance, premix has a minimum. The minimum of premix 0.25% inclusion rate, depending on the quality. So you don't have to put below that. Feed without premix is not feed. What would you use to supply the trace elements? Those small quantity, we call them micro minerals. the zinc, the manganese, and many others, the magnesium. They are micro but very important. The copper are in the premix. And then the vitamins, the essential vitamins, besides the ones that you would add for like the yellow yolk, the carotene, which can be produced in large quantities, you need those minute vitamins. So it has a minimum. And sometimes we even put a minimum in layer chicken. In a fish, we put a minimum for salt because you need salt. So for the minimum, during formulation, you may include exact or higher. So you put either that or higher than that. So after defining the maximum inclusions, minimum inclusions, I would like to take you directly to what we call the importance of maximum inclusions and minimum inclusions. The number one importance is to ensure good portability. I gave you an example of the soybean meal, soybean cake, soybean full fat, all the three products of soya. They have a maximum beyond which the feed is not tested. Good digestibility. Certain ingredients like cotton and sunflower have maximum because of the fiber. If you put too much, feed will not be digestible. To have a lot of fiber, so that one affects the feed conversion rate. And then the other importance is quality livestock products. Yes, you may have maneuvered food to feed and birds are growing, fish are growing, pigs are growing, cats are growing. But the question is, how does the egg taste? How does the egg last on the shelf? How does the meat taste? So certain inclusions, especially for products that have a lot of fat or with the ether extract, we limit their inclusions just because we want to improve the quality of the products that we are going to harvest. Then limitation of toxins. For instance, I gave you an example, premix. Beyond 1%, you are making toxins. Some of you have layer birds that die instantly. They have signs of poisoning, but you can't explain. It's just because you put too much premixes. Certain premixes, their inclusion rate is 0.25. Please stick the inclusion rates recommended by the producer. So if you put more than what is required, you put more than 1%, you are making poison instead of feed. And certain ingredients like cotton and also soya, they have an anti-nutritional factors, which we call toxins. Even sorghum has tar. So what we do, we limit their inclusions just because we want to make the feed as safe as possible. Another importance is to limit dustiness. For instance, cassava. If you include cassava beyond 10% in your formula and you are not going to pellet, it will be dusty. So you will just now introduce another problem with the pain of pneumonia or some respiratory disease because of the dust in the room. So be careful with inclusions. Then the other one is improving mixing of feed, especially when you are going to produce mash. Imagine to have broken maize mixed with very fine concentrate. If you do not control inclusions, you are not going to make feed. You will try and mix and pack, but by the time the feed reaches the farm, it has still segmented itself. There's a segment of fine particles and a segment of coarse particles, simply because a certain ingredient particle size is not good. So we improve mixing at that level, and also we limit inclusions to include pellet white. For instance, if you are going to do pellets, you don't need feed ingredients which are more fibrous. They have a lot of fiber, like cotton. You limit their inclusion. So the inclusion for pellet may be different from the inclusion for mash. Take note of that. I may put higher cotton in inclusion for mash, but when it comes to pellet production, I reduce it. If you don't, the particle, you will try and make pellets, but they break very fast. They will not be solid enough. So that is very, very important. And then lastly, to ensure essential nutrient supply. An example, premix, the minimum of premix. You need to ensure the essential supply of nutrient supply is achieved. So that's the purpose of maximum and minimums. Every ingredient, even if it has been innovated yesterday, it should have a maximum inclusion or a minimum inclusion, but especially a maximum inclusion. Some of the new ingredients that are trending right now, like black soda fly, we are still getting information, research on maximum inclusions, and how do those inclusions affect meat quality, affect growth, affect the feed conversion rate, affect the egg quality, and many other things. So the reason why sometimes some of those ingredients are not popular is because they still have many questions about inclusion rates, about performance, about the FCR, which is the work of nutritional researchers. So there's a lot of information we need to qualify an ingredient to be a feed ingredient. So the question here, now people might be asking a question here. They want to know, what then? Where then do we get maximum and minimum inclusions? Are they assumed? Do we decide on our own? The question is no. It is research-based. People have done research and they keep doing research. For us in the FeedCalculator, every new research that we get, the higher the inclusion, the more advantageous that ingredient is, because if it is the cheapest, you put more of it. So many times we get information about this. So it is published. You can find it in documents. If you search for maximum inclusion of soya, you will get a lot of publications, journal papers, which are varying. Some have tried out and they are telling you 20 is not good, 25, 35. So you just have to get the latest research, and the latest science becomes more valid than the old one, unless arguments are clear. So we've finished maximum inclusions and minimum inclusions. I want now to introduce to you to the minimum nutrient requirements of an animal, because that is something we are going to deal with also during formulation. You are going to learn that in this aspect. Briefly, I want to define this for you. What are minimums and maximums? That's the question. The minimum nutrient requirement. What is it? In simplicity, is the amount of nutrients, e.g., crude protein, metabolizable energy, like methionine plus cysteine, crude fat, crude fiber, calcium, phosphorus, etc. that an animal needs in a 24-hour period of living. If you look at 24 hours, how much does that animal need? That's what we call nutrient requirement. And the minimum means you should meet the minimum. That requirement includes production, maintenance, and other things that are needed to maintain that animal or the body for 24 hours. Now, commonly, we don't present them in an obvious way. We present them as feed quality. For instance, if I want to do layer feed, you will find that the recommendation for layer feed crude protein quality is 16% CP. You have read that on the stickers of it. So that means that you need to have feed which is having 16 grams of protein, of crude protein, of every 100 grams of feed. That's the quality of feed. Little I mean is that if I separated the crude protein from the 100 grams, I should have 16 grams aside. Side at 84 is other things. That's what it means. So, therefore, it means that the daily feed intake, assuming your bird eats 125 grams in a day, which is the commonly recommended quantity, it means that a layer bird a day will need 16 out of 100, which is the percentage that we are talking of, times 125 grams of feed. So in total, it needs a minimum of 20 grams of crude protein per day. So if you are feeding or you've made the feed and the feed does not supply the 20 grams, for instance, you made the feed of 15%, it means to be 15 over 100 times 125. And definitely you will be less than 20 grams. So the nutrient quality, the feed quality relates to the nutrient requirements of a given animal. And these vary per age, category, starter, grower, finisher, laying birds. The one of pigs are different from the one of poultry. The one of broilers are different from the ones of layers. So you need to know that every animal or every feed type has a specific nutrient requirement. Do not assume that you can feed this feed for the other. Sometimes if you get high nutrient requirements for protein, you may find that that animal has low calcium. So you never assume that since broiler feed is high in crude protein, so it can meet the minimum protein for a layer bird, let me give broiler feed to a layer bird. You won't get eggs, because though it has the nutrient requirements of protein which are high, it has low nutrient requirements for calcium, and yet you need calcium for an egg. So it is as specific as that for every feed type. So be careful about that. Be careful about that. So be careful about that. Sorry, let me pick this. Hello? Yes. Morning. Yes, you are. I was asking if I was in a presentation. Can you call me after like 20 minutes? Is that okay? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. So this is what we call the minimum nutrient requirements. So where do we get these minimum nutrient requirements? That's the question. And the easy thing is, these have been researched. Do not have to assume. I have seen people think that when you increase the nutrient requirements, it's automatic that the animal will perform. No. Remember the presentation of the living factory. Never think giving too much will change the performance of that factory. No. It is just giving enough that makes it perform efficiently. Overfeeding is a waste and sometimes spoils the living factory. So be careful. You need just to meet the minimum. If you are to go higher, go slightly higher by a small percentage, not more than even 2% higher. Some people, you find that they are making layer feed of 18% full protein, and yet the minimum is 16. You must have a strong justification. Unless you are going to reduce on the quantity given per day, say that you reduce from 125 and drop 115 or 110, don't just assume. So any kind of quality of feed should translate into the nutrients, the ration, we call it the ration. How much does this animal eat a day? What portion will it eat this quality in a day to meet the minimum nutrient requirements of this quality? Also, if the animal has more space to feed more feed, for instance, if I have a layer bird that can feed up to 140 or 45 grams a day, I can make a low quality feed and fit into the nutrient, the ingredients that are available, and make one which is 15% crude protein. But I know I'm going to meet the 20 grams by increasing the quantity of the mixed feed the animal eats a day. So you have to play around that. That's nutrition now. That's why me who knows how to do it, you can come to a farm which I'm managing, and we are feeding weird things. I'm feeding higher quantity because the quality is low. And for you, you just ask, how much do you feed per bird per day? Then I tell you 140 grams. And then you are there saying, I am also going to raise mine. Ask about the quality. What quality am I feeding? Because I'm managing the nutrient requirements. I must meet the minimum. So you need to know that very well. You can formulate feed with this minimum or more quality as long as the cost of feed is not alarming. So it's okay. If you want to waste nutrients and feed much higher, it is fine. You can go on and do that. And then these for the nutrient requirements vary based on the tool, based on the breed, based on the region, based on the ingredients. Sometimes we do crude protein. You may find nutrient requirements that talk of digestible crude protein, digestible energy. So be careful. If it is digestible crude protein, go for digestible. And don't say, so sometimes you may find that we increase the crude protein higher than the usual because we are looking at the digestibility of the component or the quality or the digestibility of the feed ingredients that are being used. If the protein sources have low digestibility, we increase the crude protein so that we get the digestibility to be matching with the nutrient requirements. It's not automatic as you think that if I have feed which is 16% crude protein for layer bird, it's automatic that all the 16 will be taken by the animal, or all the 20 grams you supply that they know. If the digestibility is low, you may find that the feed, the layer bird takes 16 grams instead of 20. So that's how digestibility plays in nutrition. I want to show you examples of minimum and maximum inclusion rates. So and then nutrient requirements. So where do you find there's a document you've been reading, the feedstuffs and feed formulation? Go to page 50 to 55 of that document, which was prepared by PTS Plus, which is now RS. We give we acknowledge and thank that institution. So in that document, you look at different maximum inclusions. I can show you briefly. If I just get off here and go to that document for you. For instance, this document here, if you look at it, if you look at this document here, these are maximum inclusion rates of pig ingredients or feed ingredients in pig diets. So it is specific per animal. The maximum inclusion may be lower in pigs and higher in cattle, or higher in fish, or higher in chicken. So you see, we are going to look, you see, maize has no limitation in pigs. But in a cattle, it will have a limitation because too much maize leads to bloating. So you can see. Maize bran, you see, even in winners, it is lower, in fatteners higher, and in sows higher, and these are percentages. You can see for different. I can look at maize bran, for instance. Now let me go to soya. Soya is the big, is an example. You see soybeans. We are having 15 in sows, 10 in fatteners, and 10 in pigs. You see fish meal, I will see fish meal for you. If I go to fish meal, you see fish meal. It is 10 in fatteners, and I mean in winners, but in fatteners, it is 5. You see here. In fatteners, it is 5. I'm trying to display for you. Fish meal. This column is for fatteners, see? In fatteners here, fish meal is 5. Why? Because too much fish meal may end up spoiling the smell and the quality of pork. So you slaughter pork, pigs which are smelling fish. So you can see. So many things. And then I want to take you now to now poultry. You can see layers are different, broilers are different. I want to take you to poultry and appreciate. For poultry, you see cassava in mash feeds 10% less than mentioned. So you can see. I want to show you now fish, soya bean full fat. You see it was 10 or 15 in pigs, but here it goes to 20. You had in my talk 35. 35 is researched, but to be on the safe side, because sometimes people forget to combine soybean meal and soybean full fat. So we do 20, so you can see. So you have to mind about the maximum inclusions. So be careful for everything that you want to use as a feed. You can see sweet potatoes can be used. You can see even maximum inclusions. So it is a qualified nutrient requirement. And we can do sweet potatoes now in feed. So you see. So these are maximum inclusions. Somebody is saying, how about the nutrient requirements? I'm looking for them. Nutrient requirements. This is an example of nutrient requirements. You can see in a feed pre-starter winner, this is for which animal? This is for pigs. Digestible energy, digestible protein, lysine, methane. So you give this. These are quality of feed. So this is minimum or more if you are doing formulation. Do not be troubled if you find a formulation tool that has different nutrient requirements. As long as they meet the minimum, it's okay. But now in the latest formulation tools like the FeedCalculator, we don't use DCP because it is quite hard for a person to go to the lab and confirm that the digestible crude protein they have is what has been formulated in the quality of feed they have, or is what they have in the quality of mixed feed. So we have maintained crude protein, so we have a conversion ratio. Mostly it is 65% of the crude protein is DCP for certain animals 85%. So you don't have to cram it. It depends on the animal. So when you find figures higher than this, don't say, hey, they always know this is digestible crude protein. And digestible crude protein is always lower than the crude protein. So I hope you've benefited, you've learned something. I would like to stop here for now and wish you better search, read this document and master for every ingredient and for every animal. If you don't find some things here, please go ahead and search them on the internet and get the latest research. Thank you. I remain Dr. Joshua Isiko, a feed expert.